What do you do when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? You flip the tank. Tommy Korpi is a man whose reputation precedes him. Returning home after the war, he finds that the borders have shifted and he now resides in Russia. He works quickly to dismantle his home and load it onto his trusty old truck. As he prepares his move back to Finland, the Russians plan to stop him. To do so, they enlist the help of Igor Dragunov, the man who killed Korpi's family. But Tommy Korpi, the man who refuses to die, is ready. Motorcades, missiles, and old man muscles, oh my! Directed and written by Yomari Helander, and starring Yorma Tommila, Stephen Lang, and Richard Brake, in an extraordinary combination of Rambo, Mad Max, and the Telugu sensation RRR. This is a road trip flick unlike any other film. Sisu, Road to Revenge. He's not immortal. He just refuses to die. Welcome to the Burnt or Buttered podcast,
where we discuss movies after we've seen them.
And today we are talking about Sisu, Road to Revenge.
Or 2.
Sisu 2.
If you want.
I'm Toast.
I'm Stetson. And man, I had no idea what to expect going into this one because I didn't see the first one.
And this was also another Monday mystery movie.
That's true.
We didn't even plan on seeing this one.
I forgot this was Monday mystery movie. And in the first 5 minutes of it, you're kind of discovering, you have no idea what it is.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't seen the first one, there's like a little bit of clues. The very first thing that struck me when we started watching this film was that the main character says nothing. And is really good. I mean, there's so many emotions that are portrayed by this actor. I don't know his name, but what is it?
It's Yorma Tommila.
Yorma Tommila. And there's a lot of depth that he gives the character just by looking. Like his face and everything else, like his acting is pretty insane. And as I was watching probably like the first 30 minutes, I didn't know that was kind of the thing, that he didn't talk. I thought like, oh, we're just experiencing this moment with this character. And it felt really deep, especially if not seeing the first one, knowing that that's kind of like a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that opening scene, I mean, the opening credits scene where it has the definition of Sisu and it has the map, and like right from that, I was instantly into it. I'm like, this is going to be good. And then you start off with such a powerful performance of him, Yorma, walking into the old house and, interacting with like the pictures of his family, the broken glass, things like that. And no words are spoken, but you understand what's happening and the things that he's feeling. Yeah,
it was really good as a recap in a way, from the first movie, even because I hadn't seen the first movie. I automatically understood, oh, this guy's family's died and he's coming back to get his house and he's just reminiscing. And obviously all that happened in the first film.
So I also hadn't seen the first film before going to see it, and I ended up buying it afterwards because I was so curious what they had done in the first movie. They don't really talk about his family or anything. It's all about he's left the war and he's a gold miner now, and he strikes rich. He gets a bunch of gold and he's taking that back home. And there's a lot of Nazis in the way.
That's it?
That's the movie. Yeah. Like it's
so did his family die before he struck?
Before.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
So when the Nazis start pursuing him, one of the commanders is like, hey, we know this guy. Leave him alone. Like, it's not worth it. Don't go after him.
In the first film.
In the first film. Like, this is how they're introducing him, essentially, is like, don't go after him. He has killed 300 people. Like, they killed his family. He killed 300 people. Don't go after him. Leave him alone. Let him have his gold. And they're like, we can get him.
So we're going to have a Sisu prelogue or whatever it's called.
Prequel, yeah.
Prequel.
Yeah, so they've been talking about that a little bit this guy is old enough, he's mid 60s, I think.
Yeah.
And so they don't want to go, I don't know. I guess what I'm referring to is not even what the director has said. This is what people online are wanting is for him to do a prequel. He, in an interview that I listened to with Yomari, he was talking about how he likes to have the protagonist of his stories be older than him because then it gives him something to look forward to as he ages. He's like, see, old men are still doing cool stuff, So I don't know. But then again, his next project is a Rambo prequel, So maybe a Sisu prequel is in the works as well. I don't know.
Yeah, that would make sense. This guy is superhuman in so many different ways. Like this movie is unbelievable. It reminds me of like a story of a person. That's
like a legend.
A legend that's bigger than life that probably did something similar to what the story is, but the story obviously has grown to something that is outlandish, like even him just like tearing down his entire house and putting it onto a truck.
Yeah. It's so simple for this guy
himself. Being able to engineer like all these different things and like these super heavy logs that probably have oil in them, to make them waterproof, that make them even heavier. Like
super heavy.
There's just no possible way that he can throw a log on top of that giant pile. It's just insane.
But he does it so many times.
But he does it, redoes it, and then rebuilds, like takes his house, takes logs from his house, like protects the truck with it, like turns like, it's just, the house itself is a character in this movie. It carries its own weight, all puns intended.
It's interesting that you say that because so after he had done Sisu, the original one, he didn't have an idea for making a second movie. And the producers and everybody was like, hey, what's the movie? What's the next movie? What are we doing with this franchise? And he was like, I didn't think it was going to be a franchise. I thought it was just going to be this one movie. And then he was at home and like cleaning or organizing, like spring cleaning sort of deal. And he was like, what is a home? And so for him, the whole idea sprang from what is a home, and like then he started thinking about Korpi as returning to home after this first adventure, and then there's nothing there. But what, like, is it worth it for him to take it all the way back to Finland?
Yeah. Well, and the idea that the part of Finland that is his home is no longer Finland.
Yeah.
And so he has to reestablish, like, what is his home? What is Finland? Like, what is his country? And like Finland wouldn't be home without like this physical structure, which, people move all the time. There's more trees in the world, like you could restart, especially not knowing the first film and knowing that he has a bunch of money. Like, just do whatever you want.
Which they don't bring up in this movie at all. No. So it's like, what happened to all that?
Yeah. That's interesting because, the whole time I'm watching this one, thinking that what we're hearing from all these people of like, oh, he's killed all these people and whatever was all from the first film. Yeah.
Which logically makes sense. You would think if they're making a callback to something, but it's like this guy's legend is so big that you can't even just be like, oh yeah, 6 months ago he did this, you know?
You know what's kind of funny? A funny thought about this legend is that it could be being told from the Nazi perspective of like the Nazis they're like, no one can beat us. No one can, like someone so like he had to flip a tank over the barrier to get past us, you know, like because they have such a prideful, aura about them. Like they have to make this person greater than life because he was able to take out like a certain amount of them.
Yeah.
You know, like there has to be something special about this guy, even though he was just like a normal dude that just like is good at killing people.
Yeah. And this one is Russians. The first one is Nazis. This one's Russians.
Yeah.
But yeah, like there is definitely something superhuman about this guy. And Yomari Helander essentially just explains it as he's not immortal. He just is so stubborn. Like he will not die.
But at a certain point, your body just has limits. I mean, flipping a 5-6 ton tank 30 feet in the air and landing on the ground with no like support or padding or anything inside that tank, you're done.
That did pretty much knock him out though. That's when they got him.
Almost. And then flying off of a cliff into water, and able to gather up all the logs from your truck that, almost killed you because you had to unhook all the logs from the truck before, ascending to the surface.
Mm-hmm.
Part of me wishes that they would have killed him there. Part of me wishes that he would have drowned with, and his house would have flowed up and like, I don't know.
But he refused.
I still got air in these lungs.
Hey, you and I both saw Last Breath, man.
Yeah, what would have been cool maybe is like if the angel of his wife or someone like came into the water and like breathed air into his lungs and then he like, went back to the surface.
I don't know. This is about being a man. I mean, that's one of the beautiful things about this franchise is it's so simple. Like the plot is so simple. He's taken his house to Finland,
Yeah.
The first one, he got gold. He's taking it home. Like the plot is so simple, but they bring in these characters that are so interesting. Like in the first one, like they really, really sell you on disliking these guys, the villains, So when they're getting killed, you're like celebrating. And so then like when the most insane thing happens, you're like, I'm gonna believe it because I want this to be real,
Yeah. Yeah. I was going back and forth in the theater of liking it, getting annoyed with it, liking it, getting annoyed with it. Like the one thing that kept me kind of grounded was the cinematography and the filmmaking itself. Like that really kept me in the I'm liking this, box.
Yeah.
Where I feel like if that wasn't there, I probably would have just got annoyed with how ridiculous things were getting just over and over and over again. And I get the same feeling with John Wick. Like I'm watching John Wick and over and over again, it's just like these impossible scenarios that are happening that he's getting out of. And at a point, I was like, I can't believe it anymore. Like no matter how great this guy is as an assassin, like at some point you're just going to get clipped because you're surrounded by hundreds of other assassins.
Yeah. I don't care how bulletproof your suit is. You're still going to get shot at some point.
And like, it was kind of the same thing with like Sisu, where at a certain point, you're one man against 50 guys and they're all shooting automatic weapons at you. And you're just somehow able to get out of this scenario. You know, like it's just so improbable, but the filmmaking and the juxtaposition of like this protagonist not saying anything ever, like was cool. You
Yeah.
know, I did like that you're adding a lot of depth without adding any dialogue. And deciding how to tell a story without words.
Yeah.
You know, was interesting.
Yeah. And so that actor, Yorma Tommila, he was in Finland. He's very, very well renowned. He was a big theater actor over there, and he's actually been in all of Yomari Helander's biggest films, like his 4 like you're known for movies. Yorma has been in, and I guess they just work really well together. But I think his theater background allows him to show more, you know, because you have to over exaggerate in theater.
Yeah. And it got like close to the point of over exaggeration a few times, but it didn't ever cross that line.
Exactly.
You know, which was awesome. You know, in comparison to a movie that we're going to be reviewing here soon, Running Man.
There's a lot of comparisons we could be making between these movies.
Where in Running Man, it felt overacted the entire time. You know, like there's so much emoting to telegraph the feelings, where in Sisu, it was like just enough where you understood the telegraph that was coming in, but it felt genuine, you know, and because of that, you have to kind of give it its roses, you know, on that side, even though it can be outrageous.
Yeah. The cinematography, the emotional aspect, like they hooked you on emotion immediately in that movie. I feel like they made you care about the character, like this one was. It's interesting, you know, and like you said, having the protagonist not speak. There have been other movies that have done that, but it always almost comes off a little bit gimmicky, you know? Or you'll have like a running dialogue in the guy's head so that you can explain like, oh, this is what he's thinking. You don't have to do that because this guy's so good, number one. And number two, the plot's so simple. You don't need a bunch of extra stuff.
Yeah. And I think like the one thing about this film too that makes it work is that he's on an island. You know, like he doesn't have to speak because there's literally no one that he wants to speak to. Yeah. You know, like there's no one that matters enough that he is going to give them words, you know, in this country that was taken from him. You know, and I feel like that's why it makes sense and it's not forced where you have like other protagonists that don't speak and they just grunt a lot or, you know, whatever it is. They have people that they could talk to. Yeah. You know, this guy literally doesn't, you know, like, and I'm sure he can speak Russian, you know, cause he's in that area. Maybe not. Like maybe he just can't even speak their language. And so there's literally not another person that he's going to speak Finnish to.
Yeah. That was one thing that I believe I heard in an interview with Yamari about the first movie was that all of them were Nazis, so he wouldn't be able to speak with them. And then in the first movie, he does say like 3 lines of dialogue at the very end. And it was a lot. Like he has a much better voice than I expected, you know?
This is soothing somehow.
The dude does good. But he says it in Finnish, so it's cool. Yeah.
Man, yeah, I feel like this one has sat with me long enough to where like when I left the theater, I probably would have rated it lower than what I'm going to.
I think I loved it straight out of the theater and like it's one of those movies that takes you from feeling like emotionally sad to laughing out loud to being mad, you know, a little bit scared. And then at the end, you're just like, you're almost emotionally crying from happiness.
Oh my gosh. I don't know if you can go that far.
I heard a lot of people saying that. They actually cried in the theater at the end. So
I was crying from the ridiculousness of that tank flip. Like once that tank flip happened, I was like, okay, what? Like I wasn't expecting it. That was the biggest thing. Like you have a tank, you think that you can just roll a tank through,
just go through it.
Yeah. But somehow he like comes around and somehow has rigged up his house on this tank. And then it gets put back on the truck. Like that's the most ridiculous thing.
Well, no, it never gets put back on the truck, but it gets put onto the train, and then it gets put onto his little hand cart at the end.
He's like freaking carting it. Oh man, yeah, like that's at that point you're like, I don't know, almost at the end, and you're just like, okay, I've seen it all. I've seen it all. But then he's like, then he gets onto the cart and he's just freaking pumping away. You're like, this old man would never be able.
After all of that.
No, he has some sort of broken bone. He probably has broken back. Like
his face has got to be broken.
Yeah.
Like
he's got to get shot. Like I think he got hit.
He got shot
at one point. He went off a huge cliff, almost drowned.
Yeah.
Somehow gathers all these logs in the ocean.
You know what I was thinking though is like you and I grew up on like Walker, Texas Ranger, right? Or like another Chuck Norris film, The President's Man. I don't know if you ever saw that one. It ends with Chuck Norris has just beat this guy up, and he's on his hands and knees in the table position, right? And he mouths off to Chuck, and Chuck kicks him like a football. He goes spinning into a tree. And like as a kid, that is the coolest thing you can see. Like sure. It was so cool to see that as the ending, and satisfying. And I feel like that's what this movie brings that we haven't seen in a lot of movies recently.
It's almost like a Western anime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah, it was interesting. Do you have much more that you want to talk about with it?
Not really. I mean, the big things that we've mentioned, or like the things that I just wanted to reiterate, I guess, is that Yomari Helander's next project is a Rambo prequel. He said that he did take a lot, like Rambo First Blood is one of his favorite movies.
Yeah. And
so he took a lot of inspiration from that for both Sisu movies. So he's really pumped about doing this Noah Centineo Rambo.
What are we going to see? Because Rambo First Blood is when he turns into Rambo. Like we're going to see him in the war?
I think we're seeing him in the war.
Oh.
Yeah. So.
That makes sense.
It'll be interesting.
All right. I was like, what are we going to go back to high school?
Yeah.
Like Rambo in high school.
Just it's just Noah Centineo in the kissing booth or whatever.
He's just like playing football or something like that.
But people's heads are exploding.
Yeah. He like booby traps the whole high school for some sort of like invasion. Well, sweet. Well, let's rate this thing. I am going to give this now, if I would have came out of the theater and gave it a rating, I would have rated it a 2.5, I think.
Higher than I expected based on how you were talking.
Just because like sometimes the ridiculousness of stuff gets to me. Mm-hmm. And yeah, leaving the movie theater, I was like, But after sitting on it for a while, I mean, it's been a couple weeks since we've seen it. Thinking about the movie and thinking about the cinematography, everything inside of it, it makes me want to watch it again. Yeah. And I feel like I can't rate anything below a 3 if I want to watch it again. And so I'm going to give it a 3.4.
Wow. Yeah, I really liked it. I had a good time in the theaters. I think when he slammed on his brakes and the 2 logs rolled forward and then the plane used it as a ramp, that's when I knew what we were in for. And
that's when you knew?
That's when I knew. That's when I knew.
That was like at the end of a huge battle against 2 planes in his car.
But the rest of that makes sense. And then I saw the genius of it, and I just knew what we were in for at that point, and I was like, I'm gonna have a good time. And like I said, the emotional ties at the beginning and end really grounded it in a way where I could accept the ridiculousness. And again, like you mentioned, it's a legend, right?
Yeah.
Like this could be being told about multiple different people who embodied Sisu, you know? Just a really fun story. And so I'm going to give it 3.5.
3.5.
Yeah.
This guy is just unpredictable. I would have guessed a 3.7 at least.
Wait till you hear about Running Man.
Oh, no. All right. Well, let us know what you guys think about this one. This is definitely a fun movie. And if you saw it, you probably want to talk about it. So comment, let us know what you think. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one.
I can read.